Guys, let's talk mans and females for a second. Let me bust it open for y'all. I'm talking about men and women politics, politics in general, what to do, self help, how to live your life. All of it we're doing in my literary series. I posted some old stuff onto my channel just to give you guys a brief overview of who I am as a thinker and as a scholar and a philosopher. Some of that stuff is probably going to come across as pretty controversial, but no worries. It is simply a side effect of my prose that the fires and passions within you are stirred when I speak. So, I'm here watching videos regarding the controversy surrounding gender. And I think we're finally reaching the bottom of it. Finally, Matt Walsh's definition, adult human female, has become the definition of the word woman. The socially constructed nature of which has been employed cynically by the critical schools of thought of the humanities to gerrymander a debate surrounding the concept of transgenderism, with the idea being that womanhood should be removed from the biological realities of corporeal life, of actual life. Presumably, the critical school wishes to do this to all categories: men, women, human, animal. To dis to disengage all conceptualities from materiality. But why is that? Is that linked to the search for purity that we spoke about in our preliminary videos on phenomenology, and how the bleeding out of phenomenological thoughts into the streams of Marxist and feminist thought created the modern SJW mindset, which is paradoxically very much obsessed with purity of description and a kind of refinement of the definition of terms into the most impersonal possible way, as a form of assumed politeness, an appeal to purity, purity of thought and purity of intention. To move away from the reality paradigm of the criticist people who view gender as something that is assigned to you by the tyrannical doctor. Moving over to a definition of simply biological terms that have an approved and broadly understood meaning to them. Adult, implying maturity. Human, designating the species. And female, relating to specific functions of the reproductive cells. Now you might say, well, imagine a dream world where we just we had the same society, but instead of calling women women, we called them men. And instead of calling men men, we called them women, but it was the same society. Now, most people would say, well, that first of all, that isn't the case, and second of all, if it was the case, it wouldn't matter. And so it doesn't matter. Which is precisely the point. We have to speak about what matters. And what matters, what matter is a woman, a body. So it makes sense to use a so-called biological essentialist description of a woman. Because biology relates to the body. And essentialism isn't a particular ism. It is just ontology in general. There is no way to have an ontology without a separation of the center and periphery, and the beginnings and ends of things, which means that the use of substantial or essential as a distinguishing quality in analyses of things, what is real, has to take place. And so, insofar as you are defining abstract concepts as things, you have to use a type of essentialism in order to be able to point to a thing. So it really is pointless to argue against simple, crude biological definitions of the two genders. And that means that anyone who wants to surgically alter their genitals without any pressing medical need for it are at best body modification enthusiasts, and at worst deeply mentally ill. Now, I don't have anything against body modification enthusiasts or mentally ill people, but I don't think that they represent the frontier of thought. I don't think they represent the future of philosophical progress, because the transgender project has really not added anything. If anything, a sexual reassignment surgery is merely a glorified amputation. Now, of course, the ritual of castration has been present within many types of traditions in the past, like Christian monks doing self-castration, and eunuchs within various empires. And so if you're a modern person and you want to volunteer to be a eunuch of some sort of strange cult, some sort of strange telluric cult, some sort of cult of the mother, then I guess you have a right to try and pursue that. But I have a feeling that the people who pursue power through self-denial, the path of ressentiment, the path of overdone asceticism, are just power-hungry cowards who want to take not necessarily the easiest way, but the least risky way of attaining force in the world. And so to chop off your own dick to become some sort of priest figure within the burgeoning mystery cults that are postmodern subcultures, then you're really nothing more than a squid disguising yourself as a female to sneak past the larger males to mate while nobody's watching. And so it really is just the playing out to its extreme of a mating strategy that is based on negating what has been successful mating strategy for the majority of time, and finding a different way that allows you to overcome that evolutionary obstacle. In a way that uses wits instead of will, or brain instead of brawn. The only problem is that when your dick is cut off and your hormones are completely out of balance, you're not really at a high chance of reproducing anyways. So then the only thing that would make it worth it is to achieve spiritual enlightenment. But that is only momentary, which means that eventually they're just going to realize that they made themselves prisoners of their own bodies and do what the statistics say that they do, which is commit suicide and regret the decision. And I'm sure those that don't find some other outlet for their resentment. And parents who gaslight their kids into becoming trans should be shot. And that's my 2 cents for the day. I'm not that happy about this video, but we're gonna soon be doing a similar breakdown as we did with Heidegger, but with Julius Evola. And then the viewer of this channel is essentially going to be able to be initiated themselves into my internet cult simply through viewing and listening. And what are the perks of becoming initiated? You get an infinite well of swag, which you may use at all times to help you through difficult situations in life. It's a completely bottomless well of swag that you can drink from in any moment and fill endless spaces of time with beautifully rhythmic communication, which doesn't contribute to furthering mental illness in the world. Because like the gender debate, there are many debates out there that is causing mental illness, as far as I see it. the fact that we take it for granted that families and couples become broken amongst each other over political issues or feminism or some other non-material issue that usually doesn't directly concern them. And what that is just the promotion of antisocialness. The promotion of an antisocial social life. Of a constant bickering. A constantly bickering, stupid little game that leaves everyone miserable and makes it all about waiting the longest before you also sit and contend with what Camus said was the only philosophical problem. And that is the logical end of all radical individualism and nihilism. And that is the natural byproduct of industrialized capitalism, which is the model that works. To provide us with a standard of life where we can create the conditions to inflict ourselves with our own mental problems. And that's what that is. But don't think that I'm being overly cynical here, because I have given it a real try to empathize with stuff that I have called outright degenerate many times. I have found it in me to make a real attempt to try to empathize and even sympathize at times with stuff that I find completely ununderstandable. That I'm completely unable to understand. But yet I still land on the same conclusion every time. And this is the beginning of the end for the trans debate, which has just left behind loads of stupid tragedy, I imagine. But so it is with most intellectual fads. It seems like bourgeois culture only takes joy in consuming itself. If you enjoyed this and want to see more, send me a message. Tell me what you want to hear me talk about. You don't necessarily have to send me money, but I would appreciate it. And as always, leave a like, comment, and subscribe down in my pants. And I will see you in the next video.